Hello, everyone. I'm Hyoun-Tae Hwang, Director of GeoSphere at Aquanty. Uh, is it okay? Is it connection is okay? I think, can I
The connection is
go?
good. You bet. Go for it.
Okay,
Yep.
that's great. My talk is about Athabasca River Basin high resolution modeling of the
And at this point, we can't hear you, or I can't hear you.
next, please. Okay. Yeah. So before getting into the details about our research result, I'd like to tell a little bit about Aquanty. Aquanty is spin-off from the University of Waterloo based on more than 20 years of research and development in water resources modeling. Aquanty was founded in 2012 with less than 10 people, and now it's growing up with approximately 30 people. And our model is solving the world's water problems, especially for challenging water problems, using HydroGeoSphere and other innovative tools such as XSET and HGSRT. HydroGeoSphere is the world's most powerful integrated hydrologic modeling platform. We will look at the details about HydroGeoSphere in the next slides. And XSET is an online platform that can provide farmers with essential farm data, such as satellite images, soil temperature, soil moisture conditions, etc. And HGSRT is hydrologic forecasting platform that can provide short-term and long-term probabilistic hydrologic conditions, such as flood and drought conditions. Next, please. And my talk consists of four parts. First, integrated subsurface modeling, overview of Athabasca River Basin and climate models, climate change impact analysis, and questions. Next, please. And first, what is a scientific model? When you think of a model, what comes to your mind? Maybe it's a person wearing a designer clothes at a fashion show. What about scientific model? Click, please. And person wearing lab coat and goggles? Maybe. Unfortunately, scientific model is a more abstract. Next, please. And scientific model represent a particular phenomena in the world using something else to represent it. Scientific model could be diagram or picture, or a physical model such as aircraft model kit, or programming based on mathematical representation. Next, please. And next click, please. Yeah. Sorry, could you go back up? Yes. There are many industries using scientific models. One example is Pixar. In entire entertainment media industry, they use many scientific models to make 3D animation movies. Like in water resources industry, HGS is one example, which is based on partial differential equations. Next, please. Okay, let's get into a little bit deeper about hydrogeosphere. Hydrogeosphere is a fully coupled 3D model based on partial differential equations to capture interactions between surface and subsurface water flow. So on your left side, on your left figure, you can see you can use various types of weather and climate forecast. Using these climate data set, you can simulate snow melt and snow accumulation, freezing thawing, evapotranspiration, and all types of surface water flow condition. To the subsurface domain, you can simulate infiltration and through the various zone and saturate flow under complex conditions such as fractured media, tunneling, tide rain, etc. So you can use climatology in the middle figure, climatology, land cover, soils, and geology. So using hydrogeosphere, using hydrogeosphere, you can simulate entire terrestrial water cycle. That is actually physical representation of processes and also minimize the use of empirical relations. What that means, you don't need unnecessary assumptions or artificial boundary conditions to simulate the surface and subsurface flow conditions. Next, please. So let's get to the Athabasca River Basin model. And here, left figure shows the Athabasca River Basin, ARB model, that consists of total of 23 numerical layers that covers a total of 13 geologic units from Devonian to top mineral and peatland soils. So this model covers about 160,000 square kilometers. For the climate data used for this project is work that is dynamically downscaled from global scale model called the CESM, Community Earth System Model. As you can see in this figure on the top right, there is a clear difference between global scale NAPT and work 10 kilometer resolution scale work model. As you can see here, in Rocky Mountain areas actually clearly delineate valleys and streamlines using by work 10 kilometer resolution. And using work weather research and forecasting model, we perform 3 periods and historic, mid-century, and end century. And for future prediction, as you can see in the right bottom right figure, we use RCP 8.5 red line scenario. And we understand there are a variety of uncertainty in their work climate model as well as other numerical models. So we take into account 2 different climate physics called warp G and T. Also, climate variations are need to be kind of the uncertainty related to climate variation need to be reduced. So we also use 24 ensemble members to take into account climate variability. Next, please. And here is the to the left figure, you can see the observation data location, gauging stations, groundwater wells. And using these observation data, we perform the model calibration based on historic monthly normal model. And that is from 1979 to 1994. And we also use initial parameter settings based on our steady state simulation result that it was published in 2018. And also we estimate the water balance, monthly normal water balance in this area from average January to average December. Next, please. And once calibration was done, and then we performed model validation to confirm ARB model really works well for climate conditions, seasonal variations. So here we compare observation, which is represented by symbols, and simulation result, which is represented by red line. As you can see, left 4 figures from upstream Jasper, Hinton, Athabasca, and Fort McMurray. In the upstream simulation results show that slightly overestimation during low flow season and underestimation during high flow season. However, in the downstream area, which is a very important water balance perspective, so you can see there is a high agreement between observation and simulation result. Also, we take into account uncertainty of model. That means we performed 108 simulations with different parameter setting to understand uncertainty relate associate this model. So bottom line, based on the validation result, ARB model can capture the seasonal variations, and also there is a high agreement between observation and simulation result. Next, please. And here is a validation result for groundwater system upper left, and surface water depth upper right, and bottom two figures are for actual evapotranspiration and exchange flux. So for the groundwater system upper left shows some area is actually shallower groundwater table in because of the lower elevation and also pit properties. And top right shows a spatial distribution of water body, and that's actually matched very well with the real water body condition. However, we haven't corrected the bathymetries of lake, so water depth is slightly different from the real condition. And bottom left shows actual evapotranspiration. Overall average is about 450 millimeter per year, which is matching well with the observation. And as you can see in the midstream, you can see slightly increased in actual evapotranspiration in midstream and downstream area. And bottom right shows the exchange flux distribution, which consists of infiltration and exfiltration. As you can see here, mostly red, that means infiltration is dominant in the land side, and blue line representing exfiltration from groundwater system to surface water system that shows a strong along the rivers and especially along the Athabasca rivers and its tributaries. So next, please. So once the model validation was done, and we also estimate the groundwater contribution to the surface flow system along the Athabasca River. Blue represent stream flow from upstream to downstream along the Athabasca River, and red represent the groundwater seepage contribution. So as you can see, groundwater seepage contribution annual average is about 42%. That ranges from 34% during high flow season to 51% during low flow season. That changes various, but bottom line is groundwater contribution is very significant to the surface water flow condition along the Athabasca River. Next, please.
Hyoun-Tae, when is this? What would be the time frame for this image you've got here then?
This time frame is a 15-year simulation result.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you. And once our validation is done, then we perform the future prediction using climate change data from work dataset. So here we compare the precipitation change in future compared to relative change in future. So blue represent precipitation increase in future, brown represent precipitation decrease in future. And bottom two figures, let's look at the bottom two figures. Left side is a work 10 kilometer resolution precipitation change, and right side it represents the CESM global scale precipitation change during winter time. So both precipitation changes similar, which means in future prediction there is an increase in precipitation. However, here is a clear difference between high resolution and low resolution. And as you can see on the bottom left figure, there is a clear delineation of rain shadow around the Rocky Mountains. However, the CSM is a kind of blur in the rain shadow. And we can look at the significant difference in between global scale and high resolution work data set. As you can see here, for the global scale CSM top right, brown covers up to midstream of Athabasca River. That means there is a precipitation decrease in future. However, to the left, top left, you can see the precipitation increase in future. So this can make a big difference in future climate change impact analysis. Next, please. And we estimate the precipitation change compared to observation and historic and future prediction, end of century precipitation. Green represent precipitation change. And light pink represent convection precipitation. There is like a storm or something mesoscale climate. And orange represent the snowmelt condition. So let's look at green first. So precipitation comparison between observation symbols and simulation result lines, green lines, and there is a that simulation result close matching with observation. And compared to historic result, and that line represents the future prediction and century prediction. As you can see, there is a about 30% precipitation increase that is supported by convection increase. And also one thing interesting thing from the climate change climate simulation is that snowmelt peak. As you can see, the orange solid line peaks around April. However, in the future prediction, you can see that the peak shifted to 1 month earlier. That means snowmelt peak occurs around March. However, the overall amount of snowmelt is similar and similar. And the bottom line is precipitation in future increase by 30%. Next, please. And here we compare the streamflow in future and history, as well as observation. First, we compare the observation, which is a green line, and simulated observation is represented by blue line. As you can see, taking account the variation of observation, there is a high agreement between simulated and observation streamflow at Fort McMurray. Compared to the historic result, you can see the streamflow in future and century increased by about 40%. So next please. So we performed the future climate simulation, climate change simulation using ARB model. So here we compared historic and future mid-century and end centuries change in groundwater system. This figure shows the groundwater table change. Red means shallower groundwater table. Blue means a deeper groundwater table in future. As you can see, red is dominant. That means shallower groundwater table is dominant in mid-century and end century. Next, please.
And so just a quick question. It does appear that there is some decrease in the mid-century. Why is there that decrease in the mid-century from today versus going into the future?
Yes, that is a really good question. There is also actual evapotranspiration. Actual evapotranspiration increased by 15%, especially in the midstream is actually concentrated on that part. So that's why the groundwater table is a little bit deeper. That is actually not a significant difference. Actually, that's the less than saying 0.1 meter difference.
Thank you.
No problem. Next, please. Yes. Thank you. This figure shows surface water depth change in the future. Red represents deeper and blue represents shallower. So as you can see, midstream surface water depth change is slightly shallower. However, in the other areas, upstream and downstream area is actually deeper surface water change in mid-century and end century. Next, please. And for the actual evapotranspiration, which is a very important factor for water balance in Athabasca River Basin and other model. And here, dark light red, which is a stronger actual evapotranspiration in mid-century. However, in end century, you can see the dark red. That means a stronger, relatively stronger actual evapotranspiration is projected in end century, especially in the midstream and downstream areas are relatively high compared to midstream actual evapotranspiration. Next, please. And we also compare the exchange flux difference in mid-century and end century. As you can see, red, that means a stronger exfiltration that combine the infiltration and exfiltration together. So both infiltration and exfiltration is stronger in end and mid-century and end century. Especially in end century, you can see the stronger exchange flux along the Athabasca River and its tributaries. That means the groundwater flux, seepage flux is also stronger in end century. Next, please. And we also estimate wetness and dryness in future prediction. We perform two types. One is a typical analysis using Aridity Index. Aridity Index is defined by the ratio of precipitation to PET. And another analysis is called HGS analysis using actual aridity index that is based on the ratio of precipitation to actual evapotranspiration based on HGS simulation result. First, we look at the typical analysis based on aridity index. Yeah, and first, you can see the upstream area, top left, in historic period. You can see the blue area. That means the upstream is the wet condition is dominant in upstream. In the midstream and downstream area, you can see the red. That means the drier condition is dominant. That's why we call this area as a subhumid condition. In the future, mid-century, next right, and then end century, you can see the still drier condition is dominant in the midstream and downstream. However, the magnitude-wise slightly drier compared to historic result. However, you can see if you look at the hydrosphere analysis based on actual aridity index, you can see the totally different result because we use actual evapotranspiration for this analysis. For the historic period, bottom left, you can see the blue or balanced condition is dominant in midstream and downstream area. Also, the wet condition is dominant along the Athabasca River. And move on to the mid-century and end century, you can see the blue is also dominant. That means the weather condition is also increased compared to the historic period. Next, please.
These differences are actually quite striking. Could you repeat again the difference between the potential and the actual? Because the conclusions you can draw from the region are completely different based on these two analyses.
Yes, that's right. Yeah. So here, why is the difference? There is a big difference because the PET, potential evapotranspiration, is used in typical analysis. That means potential evapotranspiration is an ideal case, and then that maximize evapotranspiration. Then that's why we call potential. And actual evapotranspiration, literally actual, that is based on soil moisture and surface water depth and subsurface saturation. So that calculate everything related to the saturation and subsurface condition that we calculate actual evapotranspiration. That's why there is a big difference in between typical analysis and hydrogeosphere analysis.
Good, thank you.
No problem. And next is once the climate change impact analysis was done, then we estimate groundwater. How much change in groundwater system, groundwater seepage in the ARB model. So red line represent historic result, and blue represent mid-century, and green represent end century. So as you can see, magnitude-wise, groundwater seepage to the surface water flow system increased in mid-century and end century further. And yeah, so however, as you see the clear increase in the magnitude in groundwater seepage, however, contribution rate compared to the surface flow system is actually decreased because relatively the stream flow in mid-century and end century increased by up to 40%. So that reduces groundwater contribution in mid-century and end century. Next, please. Okay, so far we are talking about the climate change impact analysis for basin scale through the whole basin scale ARB model. Now we are looking at the specific area, especially for Alberta oil sand area, because oil sand mining industry is very important that highly affected by the climate extreme condition. So we closely look at the mining area for what happened in the future for climate extremes in future. So we use a total of 14 stations, as you can see in this figure. And then please, next please. And then we estimate the generalized extreme value distribution compared to observation and simulation for historic period. And there is a clear, there is a high agreement between observation and simulation result. And blue line represent historic extreme value analysis distribution, and the red line represent end of century extreme value analysis. As you can see here, there is about 30% increase in extreme event condition during winter time. And next, please. For summer period, as you can see, blue historic period, that extreme event distribution is compared to the future end of century extreme value event. As you can see, there is a slight 10 to 20% increase in extreme event. So it is clear that there is a extreme event occurred in future end of century, especially for end of century. And then using this extreme event analysis result, then we perform, next please. We perform 10 extreme conditions, 5 for historic and 5 for end century. As you can see in these light 4 figures, this is historic extreme simulation result. As you can see from this figure, groundwater, top left, top right shows surface water, and bottom 2 figures shows actual evapotranspiration and exchange flux. Especially for actual evapotranspiration, top left and bottom left, as you can see, that changes from less than 100 millimeter per year to higher than 800 millimeter per year. That drives actually groundwater system and surface water system changes. So that is affected by the high actual evapotranspiration, and that changes the groundwater system and surface water system. Also, exchange flux changes a lot during the extreme condition, especially for this extreme event simulation. We can select a certain oil sand mining site, as you can see in the bottom figure. Then we can customize the water balance, specific water balance, using precipitation, actual evapotranspiration, exchange flux as well. Then customize water balance in each single mining site. Next, please. Here, let's get a summary. So first, climate and hydrologic models. We use GeoSphere for integrated surface, subsurface evapotranspiration simulation. And we use WRF model, weather research forecast model, for obtaining dynamically downscaled climate data set with a high resolution, which is a 10-kilometer resolution. We also take into account 2 different climate physics called WRF GNT, also take into account climate variations using 24 ensemble members. And then we perform calibration, validation, and parametric uncertainty analysis. So first, based on calibration result, there is a high agreement between observation and simulation result. And then for the validation, based on the validation, AERB model can reproduce seasonal variability for 15-year transient flow conditions. And based on parametric uncertainty analysis, all simulation result with 108 simulation result fall within the calibration result with 10 to 20% variations, which means less uncertainty in the ARB model. And future prediction, which is a take-home message, overall results show there is a consistent wet condition in future compared to historic result, and precipitation increased by 30%, about 30% in N century, and potential evapotranspiration increased by 15% in N century, and subsurface flow system, relatively shallow groundwater table, deeper surface water, stronger actual evapotranspiration, and stronger infiltration in exfiltration is predicted. And streamflow increased by 40% in N century. Next, please. Yeah, this is all about our research result. Yeah, thank you for your attention, and thank you for the COSIA for project fund. And simulation, HGS simulations CESM simulations were done by Drs. Kader, Euler, and Professor Peltier's group, and administration and scientific review were done by Drs. Sudiki, Burr, and Jones. Thank you so much.
Great. Thank